Greetings, men of the combined British forces. Field Marshal Montgomery here. To us is given the honor of striking a blow for freedom, which will live in history. We will stand and fight here. If we can't stay here alive, then let us stay here dead. With stout hearts and with enthusiasm for the contest, let us go forward to victory. My business, as you know, is fighting. Fighting the Germans. Oh, and anybody else too who wants to have a fight. Good luck to each one of you. And good hunting on the mainland of Europe.
Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a preview. This one is from Bad Crow Games in conjunction with Relic and Sega. I'm talking about Company of Heroes, the board game based off the extremely popular PC game, a game in fact that I've been asking for a long, long time.
That's right, and the game is a real-time strategy war game, and this board game version actually abstracts that a little bit, but also adds a real-time element to simulate what is happening in that video game.
That's right. You can actually play this in two different ways. You can play it turn-based, or you can play it in real time. It's up to you on how you wish to do it. They have a set of rules for both of those. You can also play the game team-based, meaning that it's 2 versus 2, each player coming to the game with a different set of armies. We have in front of us the US against the Germans, and make sure you guys check out the Kickstarter page because we hear there's going to be some other different type of armies introduced as well. As we said, this is a prototype, so everything you see here is subject to change. However, you're going to notice this does a really good job of representing the board or the PC game itself.
That's right, and you can see the game we already have set up here is a capture game where we have these different flag posts set up on the different resource markers, and much like the video game, you're going to be trying to capture these. There are also some other game modes you can play and some other maps you can play on, including just a free-for-all elimination game where you're just trying to destroy your opponent's bases.
So I think a lot of people want to know, how does this compare to the actual PC game? We're going to get a lot of viewers on this that have had past experience with that, and they want to know, did they take the video game and translate it really well to a board game format? And I have to say they have. All the things that you're familiar with in Company of Heroes have been translated into this game. You have the control points that you're trying to gain munitions and manpower and fuel and victory points, capture those or neutralize them with other players. You have all the different types of units that can do flanking and pinning and mortar shots and tanks and infantry units and flamethrowers. You have buildings that you can occupy to be able to suck up or absorb some of that damage. You can actually destroy the buildings and the units inside of them. You have, as I said, you have flanking, you have front armor piercing. It's just a really good representation of Company of Heroes, and they've actually distilled it down into a very deterministic game. You're going to see a number of dice over here to the side, and we'll show them on screen. These dice are almost never rolled in the game. That's right. They're usually used as markers within the game.
Yeah, there's a ton of different components, of course, like that you'll see here. But one of the main components you're going to be using are these little trays. And these trays are going to hold your figures and allow you to move them around the board to simulate their position. But you can upgrade these units over time. And we'll talk about how you can do that in a minute. But as you upgrade them, you're going to be taking these different dice, turning them to different faces, and then slotting them in these trays to signify their upgrades, both for yourself and for your opponents. And these upgrades are going to do things like give you extra hits, extra damage, armor piercing, flamethrowers. They're going to be giving you the ability to defend against attacks and things like that. There are a variety of ways you can go with these different upgrades.
Yeah, one of the cool things too, as we said, they're almost never rolled. They're actually only rolled in two different ways. When you're throwing grenades at each other and we're doing HE damage with shells and whatnot. Everything else is purely deterministic. If you have a set of units that is opposing another set of units, you're going to do equal damage simultaneously to one another, depending upon your line of sight and your range for the weapons that you have. Each individual unit is going to be tied into your headquarters card at the very start of the game. Each player is going to start with one of these, and it's going to show you your 3 units that you can use right at the start of the game. Each of these units has a summoning cost, which usually requires some kind of manpower or munitions or fuel. They're also going to tell you how much health are involved, what their range is, what their sight lines are, and any other special abilities they have. In fact, each of these units can also be upgraded through the course of the game by either having one-time abilities by spending some of those resources you have, or actually using experience that you have from defeating units to upgrade them and all the other units that you build of that type. You in fact have 2 other types of buildings that you can likewise build through the course of the game, which also have different sets of units that you're going to be able to bring onto the table. Things, again, like mortar teams, tanks, anti-armor type weaponry. It's just a really good representation of that game.
So yeah, this game does take the economy curve that you'll find in the video game and translate it into the board game, and it gives you a player board to kind of keep track of all of this.
Yeah, 2 other things I want to mention. Number 1 is your headquarters board. This is going to have a couple of different things you need to pay attention to. At the top, you're going to have cubes that are going to mark your income. Income is gathered from the control points that you have on the board. So if you control 2 manpower points, you're going to get 1 natively plus 2. These are going to translate at the end of the round into your actual supply, which are used to be able to build those buildings, to upgrade your units, and to bring new units out into the board. You're also going to have space over here for your experience and a place for one of your commander cards if you choose to use commander cards, which you probably want to do the more experience you have in the game. These commander cards are going to give you a wide range of flexible abilities and upgradables for your entire army. All right, now you also have 2 other things over here. You have your damage markers. You're going to be taking damage through the course of the game, and then you have your experience, which you're going to be able to use. How do you play the game? It's really simple. Each round is going to take place through 3 different phases. These phases are maneuver, combat, and then supply. Maneuver is when you're actually maneuvering your people on the board. We're only going to talk about the turn-based game here, not the real-time strategy. How turn-based combat works, or maneuvering works, is you're going to actually have these cubes. And these cubes are going to allow you to move on the board. They're actually going to mark your spaces that you've moved. Each unit in the game is allowed to move 3 spaces each round, and no more. So you're going to be able to take your units and say, I'm going to move 1, 2, and then 3, and then move it that far, leaving those on the board, denoting that you've moved that unit that round.
Yeah, everyone has 9 of these cubes, and you can almost think of these as action points because some maneuvers actually cost more action points, like moving into a building. You can take something like a machine gun nest and you can pack it down, or you can deploy it up to do pinning fire and other things like that you'd be familiar with from the video game. So even in the real-time strategy mode, you only have 9 of these cubes to use every turn.
Yeah, and one player is going to use 3 of them on their turn, followed by the next player. You're going to go back 3 at a time until that round is done. Then you're going to do combat. Combat, as we said, is mostly deterministic in this game. You're going to look at all the units that you have on the table, and you're going to decide which units are in line of sight of others and which units have sight or range to be able to hit them. Every unit in the game has a native range of 2, meaning you can hit from 2 hexes away. Some of them have a larger range, maybe 3, but they require spotters, meaning that you have to have another unit around that to be able to hit that range. You have a number of different things on the game that are also going to represent cover. So if you're in a building, you are covered. If you're shooting through yellow or green lines, you have cover. So all these other things are going to factor into it. Each unit in the game also does 1 damage to the other unit. Again, depending upon some of the different things you may have. If you have HE damage, you may have to roll for that. If you have grenades, you may have to roll for that. And that does simulate the randomness of it. However, if you have a unit shooting at another unit, they're almost always going to be able to hit because of their range.
That's right, and this is where like the tactical experience of the game comes into play, because you'll see, even looking in this board, you've got choke points and passes and areas that are defendable, and you've got units like the mortar that can hit anywhere on the board, or the machine gun nest, which can pin down. So while the gameplay itself is fairly simple, these decisions you have to make tactically are going to be very difficult, and you have a very limited amount of time to think fast, especially in that real-time version, about where you're moving these troops, because you could be easily placing them into a trap.
Then you go into the supply phase once you're done with the combat phase. In the supply phase, you're going to go through 4 different steps. The first one is you're going to collect supply. You're going to look at your income levels on the board that we showed previously, and you're going to gain that into your actual stockpiles. Again, those stockpiles can be used to be able to do the second action, and that's being able to purchase new units into the board, or to be able to upgrade your existing units.
Yeah, and any new units you purchase, again, like Jeremy said earlier, the units you can purchase are locked behind these buildings. You have to build a new building first, and then you'll gain access to stronger units. And they always come out at your starting location.
The third step allows you to actually capture the spots that you're in, or those supply areas. If you have a unit in that area and it is a neutralized unit, meaning there's no flag on there, you get to capture that point by placing one of your flag markers on top of that tent pole, meaning that you now have control of that munitions point or that manpower point. However, if there is another player's flag on it, you simply neutralize it. You take their flag off and give it back to them. That's going to happen for each of the different areas that's occupied by unit. Finally, you're going to adjust your income depending upon how many of these points you control. This is when you're going to adjust the income part at the top. Remember that income is going to come first before you capture, so you have to have it for a full round before you're able to accrue that supply.
Yeah, that's right. You're building first, and that's the tricky thing to wrap your head around is even if you're captured 5 or 6 spots this turn, you don't get that income until next turn. So you need to plan ahead for sure.
Guys, this is called Company of Heroes. I have not been more excited for a game. I love World War II games. I've been asking for this game for quite some time. I personally am super excited that there's very few dice used in the game for combat. It's almost purely tactical and deterministic, meaning that you're going to make the decisions on where your army moves, what kind of things you want to upgrade, which ones you want to build, where you want to attack, what you want to occupy. It's all up to you, and it's deterministic, which I love. So
yeah, and I really am excited about that real-time mode.
Yeah,
I want to get really experienced with this game and play this in real time.
Yeah. So that is Company of Heroes. Make sure you guys check out their Kickstarter page for all the final components. If you guys have any questions, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Also follow us on Instagram, and we will catch you guys next time.
Yeah, I just like the fact that the mechanics went hand in hand with the theme, right? And the theme is Company of Heroes, and so all of the RTS mechanics resemble the same mechanics that the video game had. So it's basically like a conversion of basically the video game Company of Heroes into the board game. Really well done, awesome.
I really like that you can choose between different weapons and different infantry units and companies and different tanks with different abilities, so you can really focus if your strategy is going to be attack or more of the defense of the area.
We were able to finally capture ammunitions point.
Which one?
This one right here. It took us forever to do it, and it actually kind of a handicap for us because the other team had captured one, and so they were able to upgrade their weaponry faster than us, and that was kind of our downfall. Yeah, we got the ammunitions point in the end.
It's fun that you're on teams. I think that was probably my favorite part because you're going against somebody, but you still have somebody on your side. So it was kind of fun to work together because that was in one moment we were able to take down something that I wouldn't have been able to do by myself.
So I really enjoy the game. I think that playing with a partner makes you where you can have an overall strategy, but you can also do your own segments in your own area. So I focus more on this area here. I was able to get my machine gun units to really hunker down on the building and defend this area really well with the
But I felt like it was pretty accessible. It was fun, and I felt like the things built on each other. So if you got the infantry guys and then moved on to getting tanks or other equipment, and then the little add-ons you could get, they made sense.
What I really like about this RTS strategy, right, the real-time factor of it, is that it didn't feel any crazy. It wasn't like everybody running to play right away. No, people were taking their time because you have a limited amount of moves that you can do, and you really want to see what is your opponent going to do because that's going to interfere with your move. So you're almost being very careful, even though it was real time. So it didn't feel crazy or chaotic. It felt very paced and strategic. So I really enjoyed it.